Hello, Vancouver. We're here for another episode of Hello History with Pat Jollota.
Hello, history.
And today we're going to talk about the history of the building that houses Warehouse 23, which is a restaurant and event space here in Vancouver. And it has actually a long history that Pat was telling me about. And we thought it would be really interesting since we've moved the Hello Vancouver show to Warehouse 23. We'd like to hear more about the building that we're in.
Yes, not only the building, but the land itself, because this was part of the Esther Short donation land claim.
Oh.
And this was Terminal 1, which is Warehouse 23. Terminal 1 was in her will being left to the city of Vancouver to be a public wharf. And it was basically lumber, and really was a mess. We would not have been proud of it. It's where people dumped their garbage and such.
Which is so different from what it is now. So where we are located is basically at the foot of Columbia Street. Columbia Street, the street used to actually come all the way down to the river.
All the way.
And now what we have is Terminal 1. We're looking out at the Interstate Bridge, and we're right here next to the water.
And we're right next to where the ferry boat came ashore, because the ferry boat came ashore at the foot of Washington Street. So this was a lot going on right here. In 1918, when we were going into World War I, the stand for Shipyard was right here as well. And then by the end of the war, they were beginning to close down, but they thought they could keep going with private ships.
Okay.
And they lasted till about 1921, thereabouts. But there was something else going on here at the same time.
What was that?
Our prune industry.
Of course, our prune industry.
It was our biggest business outside of the brewery, and it was shut down for prohibition. So prunes were it.
Oh my goodness.
Our biggest customer had been Germany.
Oh, who'd we just been in war with?
We just destroyed that customer.
Yeah.
Yes, they were trying to shore it up, which is why they formed the Prunarians, why we sent people all over with signs saying we're full of prunes. But it was, and when Warren G. Harding stopped on his way through, we gave him a box, 30 pounds of our best prunes in a gilt wrapping.
I'd be interested to read the stories about what happened like in the next 24 hours in world news.
Well, he was dead 6 weeks later, you know.
Is that our fault? Did
I
we
don't
do
think
that?
So. I don't think so. It takes longer than going.
Okay, anyway.
And they decided what they really needed was a warehouse for the prunes.
Oh.
And the city built the Terminal 1 warehouse in 1923.
Which is how we get to the name they gave this facility, Warehouse 23.
Warehouse 23. Yes, indeed. It gradually began to fade away, and then a gentleman named George Goodrich came along. And George had the Totem Pole restaurant, and he would later on have the Crossing restaurant. And he went on vacation, and he dined in a waterfront restaurant and thought, that's what Vancouver needs. So he came back here, looked around for a place, and he saw the warehouse, and he investigated getting it. The port owned the property, and he pitched the idea of a waterfront restaurant. He called it the Inn at the Quay.
So it was the Inn at the Quay.
Yes.
Which actually carried through for a number of years.
Decades later, a hotel was added on.
The Red Lion came in.
The Red Lion came in.
And that just recently shuttered.
Yes, the whole thing just very, very recently. And then along came Mark.
Mark Matthias, who interestingly enough was, I believe, a general manager for the Inn at the Quay.
That's right.
And so there are some of the photos in this building, some of the historic photos that show Mark in some fine period gear, I have to say.
Mark now is a piece of history.
Well, Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share this awesome little piece of history with us again. We really appreciate you being with us.
It's fun to do. Thank you.